Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be a video, I guess, 2 out of 2 in the series looking at Sims and the best talent builds for Warlocks currently. Once again, I want to use like best, theoretical best builds for Warlocks currently in patch 10.0.5. Now, over the past few weeks, we've got a lot of questions about what's the best build for AOE, for Affliction, Demo, Dest Plus, what are you playing in single target, what are you playing on Cleave fights, and while we could go over every single build, we'll go over a few here, but the best response is that number one, there's never going to be a general best build for the remainder of this game's history as long as these talent trees are a thing. They're going to change based on what fight you're doing. There's single target builds, AoE builds, but if you're looking for a build per each boss fight specifically involving the incarnates, there's a section on our website that has, builds for each boss and all that, if you want to check that out. But tonight we're going to cover the most played builds in single target and AoE and talk about why they're good, where they're good, and just, well, yeah, reasons as to why they're good. So, as always, WeCore's add-ons, profiles, links down below to Twitch and Discord. They're all for free for you guys. And I want to give one huge shout out, like usual, to my patrons before we get too far in the video. Guys, thank you a million times for supporting Patreon. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, links up here as well as down below in the video description. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, so off the bat, the add-on that I use to manage multiple talent builds, it's right here. It's called Talent Loadout EX. I'm sure someone's going to ask about it in the comment section. I'll try and pin it there too if I remember, but I'm sort of old and dumb at this point. But so Destro, we have 3 different builds. We have a single target build, a general 2-target, I guess, like Patchwork-esque Cleave build, and we have a Mythic Plus AoE build. Now, Destro's had a lot of buffs and nerfs and changes over the past, honestly, month or so. It's a very high simming spec. It's the highest simming spec of any spec of Warlock right now for the most part. But when it comes to single target, it's seen a handful of changes. Now, this is currently the best single target simming build for destruction that I've seen. The class tree, for what it's worth, for every spec is going to have 2 points in Soul Conduit, 2 in Synergy, and like all these traits filled in here. Everything else, general things, whatever, what have you, this is fine. But we're looking at spec trees here, just for what it's worth. So when it comes to single target, this is Destro's best performing build in pure patchwork. Now, it might look a bit odd having to go through Havoc and Pandemonium or Cry Havoc to actually get down further in the tree here in pure patchwork, but the way Destro is structured, you have to put a point at least in Havoc to unlock the next row here, and that's awkward in pure patchwork settings. Now, you're putting a point in Cry Havoc or Pandemonium, whatever, this node here, to reach Backlash, then 2 points in Scalding Flames, and 1 point in Grimoire of Sacrifice. Now, with Sacrifice working with Synergy now, Sacrifice is currently the highest. Sacrifice is part of the highest single target simming build for Destro. And the other interesting parts of the tree here, you have Backlash, Roaring Blaze, obviously, EP, Soulfire, and Decimation. Now, the big change here is that Soulfire has gotten buffs over and over and over again. And for the most part, it's been pretty heavily resisted, I guess, from the player base because of its sort of slow cast time, everything else, and honestly, playing with it, it's really not that bad. Soulfire and Decimation are a powerful tool in single target for sure. Older builds used to go into Ruin here. However, once again, due to Sacrifice being better and working with Synergy now, you end up putting a point in Soulfire, a point in Decimation, and then pathing through here for Sacrifice, everything else, and the bottom part of the tree here, an Infernal, Embers, 2 points in Madness, Chaos Incarnate, Ritual of Ruin, 1 point in Master Ritualist, 1 point in Avatar Destruction, and 2 points in Burned Ashes. And this brings you the strongest single target build for Destro on a fight like Taros or any other, I guess, single target-esque setting, which is, let's be honest, really only Taros this tier. Now, if you're looking at a 2-target Cleave spec, or I guess build for Destro, I want to emphasize this is what I call the Sonarth build, but it is not a build that has Cataclysm or Rain of Fire or Pyrogenics. And for the most part, really, Destro's not played in Evolve the Incarnates with Fire, Rain of Fire, and all this stuff here, unless you're playing it on like Primal Council and things. But Sonarth, this is a solid option. Not a whole lot of changes here either. The big thing, no Soulfire, no Decimation. Everything else is mostly the same here. But you're putting points in Rolling Havoc, and those are your 2 points. So it brings you a very strong Prio profile. It's the same build you had before, just no Soulfire, no Decimation, but the exact, but also a very strong Cleave profile by having Rolling Havoc. Now, there are some builds, I will say, that do end up playing Mayhem over Havoc with Rolling Havoc. And the reason is because if you want to, they're higher RNG builds, because essentially Mayhem can proc at any point in time. So let's say it procs, you cast a few spells, your Rolling Havoc stacks to 5. If it procs again within the 6-second window that Rolling Havoc has, and you cast a spell, it will refresh the Rolling Havoc at 5 stacks and chain that 5-stack effect. You see it like played a lot on Kurog and things like that. This is not a Kurog build, it's similar, but for the most part, in controlled 2 target cleave settings, like Sonar, for example, when the large spider ad spawns and things, builds like this are what you see played. Just simple Destro, Chaos Bolts, Incinerates, Conflagrates, Immolates, big Infernal Empowerments, Burn to Ashes, and all that stuff. Not a whole lot of changes from the single target build to the Cleave build. Now, when it comes to the AoE build, this is the build you see played in the, I guess, higher end keys, looking at the MDI and things we talked about a few days ago. This build still brings a lot of single target. Big changes here, though. You're playing Rain of Fire, Pyrogenics, and Inferno. Now, if you're in a lower key setting, I wouldn't fault somebody for going into Cataclysm necessarily, but the strong suit of this build is Inferno. And you have your 2-piece, your 4-piece from Sepulchre, the purple Infernal for, you know, multiple Infernals, extra shard gen, all that stuff. But the big thing is when you're in those higher end settings where you're pulling multiple packs, right? And you have 8, 9, 10 plus targets, even 6, 7, 8 plus targets. Inferno brings an absurd amount of value, casting multiple Rain of Fires over and over, because Rain of Fire stacks. So each Rain of Fire has an increased a chance to generate shards, I guess refund shards, however you want to word it, and they all do increased damage. And the more shards you get, the more Rain of Fires you can cast. So it's a vicious cycle of just Rain of Fires over and over and over. And that's why you're seeing Destro played in those high-end settings where they have just Locks putting down their Infernal and just spamming Rain of Fire and destroying packs. That's why you see it in high-end MDI play. Demonology is fine for the most part, but in the high coordinated settings, this is the build typically you see that ends up doing the large amounts of damage. Similar things down here as well. 1 point in Infernal, Embers, 2 points in Madness, Chaos Incarnate, Ritual of Ruin, Avatar Destruction, 2 points in Master Ritualist here for a shorter, an even lesser, I guess I should say, max, like, it reduces the soul shards required for your 4-piece, basically, your old 4-piece. Your blast makes easier to cast, however you want to word it. What I'm getting at is you're putting a point here in Power Overwhelming, and 1 point here, comparatively to the single target build that plays no points here and 1 point here. The big thing is you are not playing Burn to Ashes. This build still brings a very strong single target profile. Does Burn to Ashes help a lot in single target? Yeah, it makes Incinerates hit very hard, but you still have Madness. You still have Embers feeding more Chaos Bolts. You still have Chaos Incarnate. You still have 2-piece, 4-piece from Sepulchre, Ritual of Ruin, Avatar Destruction, and even Power Overwhelming helps a little bit in single target. So this build's still very strong in single target, very, very strong in heavy AoE. And if you're looking at playing a build in Mythic Plus and AoE, this, and the AoE also bringing good boss damage, this is where I'd start for Destruction. All right, so getting into Demonology here. Now, there are 3 builds here as well for Demonology. We're going to look at the single target build, the Nether Portal Cleave build, and the I guess most universally played build plus plays no Nether Portal and no Guillotine. But starting off here, this is the single target build of Demonology. Sorry. Now, okay, so when it comes to Demo, like, there's Taros in the raid, obviously, and Demo has, for the most part, sort of been known for its good single target damage profile, but that's not really the case currently. Affliction outsims Demonology by 8,000 DPS. Destro's over 10k ahead of Demonology at this point. And Demonology's single target build is much more complicated than Destro and Aff. It's certainly more than Destro and probably more than Aff, depending on how familiar you are with Affliction. However, people do still play it on Taros and other patchwork settings, so here's the build. Now, this build plays Vile Fiend, plays Grimoire, but the main power of this build lies in your Demon Bolt damage amps, being Shadow's Bite, being Fell Covenant, being Power Siphon, being Sack Souls, and Nether Portal, and then what Tyrant does for both, right? So Tyrant obviously extends pets whenever he comes out. GWD being Grand Warlock's design reduces the cooldown of Tyrant. You have 2 points in Sack Souls here, so Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt deal 4% more damage per demon you have summoned. Tyrant being out extends all demons. Shorter cooldown on Tyrant means this affects essentially higher more often. You have Nether Portal giving you that very strong 3-minute cooldown with Pit Lord coming out once every 3 minutes. Vile Fiend for more value during Nether Portal and everything else in general. And then you have Fell Covenant with Power Siphon being the consistent source of damage, amping up your Demon Bolts a pretty substantial amount. Now, in this build, typically Demon Bolt ends up being your main source of damage beating, it used to beat out imps by a little bit. With the buffs that are coming to wild imps, it's pretty even, but this build is tedious to maintain. It might seem like maintaining Fell Covenant is not too hard. You cast a Shadow Bolt once every 20 seconds, but Demonology in its current form is swimming in Demonic Core procs. Demonic Core being instant cast Demon Bolts through Demonic Knowledge, through Dreadstalkers expiring, through having 3 dogs, through having imps expire in the first place. There are so many core procs coming in through Demonic Meteor. It's just very, very... Quite often, you end up not casting a Shadow Bolt more than once every 20 seconds, and the effect falls. And if this effect falls, your damage is, well, it's falling pretty hard as well. Now, this build has been played on Taros. There were some hybrid builds playing it earlier on, like Razagath in the Tsar of the patch, but we really only see this build played on Taros, at times on Sinarth, but Aff and Dest are better specs on this fight. So if you're looking at playing Demo on that fight, on any fight where you want patchwork damage, this is likely the build you want to play. But once again, Demo's damage profile lies in more of a, I guess, stacked Cleave kind of build. So, build number 2 here. This is the Nether Portal Cleave build. This is the build that Demonology plays in, I'd say, the majority of settings. Aranog, Primal Council, Razagath, sort of on Brewkeeper, depending on what you're playing. But this is a much more well-rounded version of Demonology. So, big swaps here, no Vile Fiend. We're playing Imp Gang Boss, no Fell Covenant here. Imp Gang Boss giving you a bit more imp damage, but the big thing here, you're playing Implosion here as well. So imploding Imp Gang Bosses gives you more imp spec, a better AoE profile. You're still playing another portal here, still playing Tyrant, but also playing Entorn Armaments and playing the Expendable. So damage is shifted from playing Fell Covenant and Shadow's Bite and all that stuff and Sack Souls from your single target Demon Bolts to more of a pet Cleave based profile with Implosion mixed in. And this is the build you see played on Aranog, you see it played on Primal Council, you see it played I guess Dathia at times, you're playing it there, you see it played on Razagath. This is the most played version of Demonology in Vault of the Incarnates. Now talents might vary a little bit from fight to fight, but this build brings still a very strong single target profile by playing another portal into Pit Lord being Gul'dan's Ambition, Tyrant into GWD for a shorter cooldown, and then baseline, or I guess passive, Felguard damage increase, and also playing Expendables for even more damage. And you also have that implosion value, right? So a fight like Aranog, this version of Demonology, you open your portal up, pull the Pit Lord out, add spawn, you implode. Imp Gang Boss summons 5 imps back. When you implode them, implode again, keep moving on with life. It's a very, very strong, stacked, single target based profile with very strong Cleave. Passive Cleave from Implosion, Fellstorm, Demonic Strength, Hand of Gul'dan Cleave, Dog Cleave, Dreadlash, FTS. This build, even though Demonology is the lowest simming spec out of all 3 Warlock specs, is probably universally the best / most played build of any spec for Warlock currently in Vault of the Incarnates. Now, the final build for Demonology here, this is what I call the no capstone, I guess, M+ build. I will say before we go to it, this build right here, the Nether Portal build, is sort of played at times in Mythic Plus if you're looking for more of a tyrannical kind of damage, I guess, single target prio focused build, while still having a good bit of Cleave with Portal and Demonic Strength and things. But the final build here is this. So this build plays no Nether Portal, no Pit Lord, no Guillotine either. Now you might think Mythic Plus, large trash pulls, many mobs, AoE down, Guillotine. But Guillotine currently, until 10.0.7, is very undertuned and not worth playing. This build, however, unlike the Cleave build, which is right here, this build opts to play these 2 talents and Infernal Command, which gives you a bit more of a consistent AoE Cleave profile. Your Felguard's Fellstorming more often, reduce cooldown here. The Fellstorm makes basically every mob hit by it take more damage, which is good in single target. Also good in AoE, and you also get 2 points in Infernal Command, which makes your dogs, imps do 10% more damage. Now, this build's a bit more rounded. It's nowhere near as bursty in single target as playing Nether Portal is, but you're still playing Tyrant, still playing GWD, and you just have more pet damage. Still playing Implosion, still playing GWD, still have your 3rd dog for Cleave, have Demonic Strength. This build feels like what Demonology was towards the end of Shadowlands. You're casting Grimoires, casting dogs, casting imps, casting tyrants, and imploding. That's basically all there is to it. If you don't want to play with another portal, and plus wherever you're at, this is likely the best build you can play until 10.0.7 hits, and we get a different talent here, and Guillotine gets a buff. This build's seeing a lot more play in Plus lately. It's sort of rising in power because, hey, it's universally applicable, I guess, in Tyrannical keys and Fortified keys. Are you going to beat the top tier DPS in the MDI right now, the best classes out there? No, but it still does respectable damage both in AoE and single target, Tyrannical, Fortified, and it is probably the most rounded version of the spec and Plus if you don't want to play Nether Portal. All right, and we have Affliction for last here. Now we have 3 different builds here, one being a single target build, one being a bit of a hybrid build, seeing play both Mythic Plus and rating alike, and then one, it's a heavy AoE build that just says, hey, I don't care about single target, I want to basically AoE. Now, this build here is going to be the skeleton of what is the best single target build of Affliction. Now, there are some variants between people. There's a few different talent changes you can go about when it comes to this build. Now, the overall highest simming build for me is currently this. You're playing Vile Taint over Phantom Singularity, and you're playing Soul Rot over Summon Dark Glare. Now, if I were to change Soul Rot to Dark Glare here, this build's behind by about 200-ish DPS, so it's pretty close either way. There are people that are playing Phantom Singularity and Dark Glare, like this in single target. Some people are playing Vile Taint and Dark Glare. Some people are playing Vile Taint and Soul Rot. So, like I said, overall, this is the highest simming build for me. If you want a bit of an easier, I guess, build to play, you can just play PS and Dark Glare. It's more than fine. They're all within 1,000-ish DPS of one another, but this is the general best single target build for Affliction. Now, you're Vile Tainting every half a minute, being 30-second cooldown. You're Soul Rotting basically every 1 minute, so you sync these two up every minute, cast them together for big Rapture value. I will say that when it comes to different fights involving the Incarnates, in pure Patchwork, ID is better than Soul Flame. But if it's a fight where ads are dying, like Razagath or Brewkeeper or whatever, Soul Flame could very well be the better option. So I would encourage you to check Wowhead, Warcraft logs, Subcreation, my website under the Vault tab, to see different builds for each fight and where Soul Flame is good versus not. Because if it's a good Soul Flame fight, you're not playing it, might be a little awkward. But this is the skeleton of what is currently the best build of Affliction in single target. Now, the second build here is more or less the Mythic Plus build. This build has a mix of both AoE and single target. Single target elements being more, you have Malignancy into Creeping Death, into Malefic Afflictions, and then Dread Touch. Now, this build is indeed playing Siphon Life in Mythic Plus and Vile Taint as well. Once again, Vile Taint and PS are basically the same in single target. Vile Taint's ahead by a little bit, so that's sort of a plus. You can play the ability that's better in single target and also has AoE implications in Vile Taint. Now, you're playing Soul Flame in this build because if you're in Mythic Plus, you're obviously AoEing, things are dying. Soul Flame does a lot of damage to certain keys. Algothar's Academy, Ruby Life Pools, at times Shadowing Battlegrounds. Solid overall. You're playing Seed into Sow as well, and Sow is your main Soul Shard spender in AoE. You'll still Rapture in single target to proc Dread Touch via MA and all that kind of stuff there, and that's what brings you that good single target profile, having Vile Taint still, having Siphon Life over AC, and then having Dread Touch. So you can sort of shift gears on bosses and still bring relevant single target damage because you're playing Haunt and the other single target damage increases here as well. Now, when it comes to trash packs and things, though, once again, you have Seed, you have Sow, or you Seed into Sow, you have Vile Taint for early Agony applications, Soul Flame when mobs die to do damage to other mobs, and you're also playing Dark Glare, Malevolent Visionary, and Grim Reach. Now, Grim Reach with Dark Glare Visionary brings a large amount of on-demand burst damage every 2 minutes via Summon Dark Glare. Pairing Dark Glare with Seed Spam in Mythic Plus can bring a very, very strong damage profile in heavy AoE pulls. It's not as strong as Destro and uncapped just insane AoE, but it still brings a lot. And it's rounded out by playing Wrath of Consumption, which gives your Corruption and Agony a substantial damage increase, 15% for half a minute whenever a mob dies, essentially. So you can chain this buff for a very long time, as long as mobs are consistently dying, which means dots deal more damage. If it's a fight, if it's a boss fight and it's as dying, and you can chain a 5-stack from a trash pack into the boss and kill an ad and maintain this, your damage is very strong. There's a lot of flexibility with this build. Good in AoE with cooldowns, good in single target, still playing Vile Taint, playing Siphon Life, playing Soul Flame, and playing Haunt, obviously. This is the most played version of Aff Mythic Plus, and the best, just, I guess, well-rounded version of Aff in, well, M+. Now, the final build here we have is, I call it the Aff Heavy AoE build. This build just where it says, hey, I don't really care about single target. I'm going to be a dog there. I'm just going to play hard AoE, and we're going to go to town. This build's playing Absolute Corruption over Siphon Life, Seed. So, Vile Taint, still playing Stack, like every other build here. Sack, playing Stack here, and playing Stack here. But the big thing with this build, you are not playing Dread Touch, you're not playing Malefic Afflictions, you're not playing Haunt, you are just saying, I want to AoE. So you have your Dark Glare, Malevolent Visionary, Grim Reach, very strong 2-minute on-demand, hit the button and go damage profile on AoE, playing Wrath of Consumption, 1 point over here in Creeping Death, and you're playing Soul Rot, Soul Eater's Gluttony, which reduces the cooldown of Soul Rot whenever UA ticks. So 2 points in Soul Eater's Gluttony essentially syncs Soul Rot cooldown-wise with Vile Taint. It varies a bit depending on your UA uptime, but it's roughly around 30 to 35-ish seconds, so you can typically pair them together. 1 point typically puts it around PS. We have 2 here, and the final talent here is Dark Harvest. This is Decaying Soul Satchel from Shadowlands, legendary. It's been cut in half to 2.5 instead of 5% per target hit, but it still provides a bit of an extra haste crit amp, and when you're popping Soul Rot, Vile Taint, Dark Glare with Grim Reach, you have Wrath Consumption rolling with Creeping Death, and you're spamming Seed with So, you can see how much damage this build can do when you have major CDs. You say, hey, big pull, go, pop it all, destroy a pack. Now, when you get to a boss, well, your damage is pretty subpar because you're missing Haunt, you're missing MA, you're missing Dread Touch, but you know, it's your choice. You can't win them all. You win some, you lose some. The good thing, in patch 10.0.7, which is coming out, I'd assume, in a few weeks here, this build's very good in single target because Aff's good in single target in general, and it still brings a very lot of heavy AoE. So there are the 3 Aff builds: single target, a bit of a hybrid build, and the heavy, I guess, AoE build. Links to all of them down below. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope the video summarized all the builds you guys might have questions about in single target, I guess hybrid, cleavish builds, and then just general AoE for Dest or Demo and Aff. I want to emphasize once again that with the current way talent trees are, there's never going to be one universal build you can play everywhere, like you used to be able to in Shadowlands or older expansions, with just the nature of these talent trees. There's not going to be any plug-and-play builds, and realistically, websites like Wowhead, Warcraft Log, Sub Creation, my website will have builds for different fights involved in Incarnates, Mythic Plus builds, and all that, which you probably realistically should check before stepping into that content, just because minor talents can vary. For example, on Kurog, the highest simming Cleave talent for Destro is Mayhem, and you play at 1 point in Fire and Brimstone. Do you play that anywhere else? No. But you play it on Kurog due to the way the fight is structured and how talents play out and all that. Now, these are great general templates to go off of, and once again, they'll be changing in a few weeks when 10.0.7 hits, but either way, I was getting a lot of questions about it over the past few weeks, so I wanted to make this video to complement the Sims video we made a few days ago, and just go from there. And I'll once again have links to all the builds down below in the comment section, and yeah, if you guys want them, just feel free to grab them. So, thanks for watching, guys. Once again, if I missed anything in the video, you have any questions about the builds, whatever, put it down below in the comment section, and I will be sure to get back to you. Once again, any week wars, add-ons to profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below, where they're all indeed available to you guys for free. And as always, I want to give one massive shout out to my patrons even before the end of the video. Guys, thank you for all support on Patreon a million times. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing for you guys, making content and everything, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, it should be a link up here as well as down below. So, now, like I said, none of these builds are set in stone, but for the most part, I think patch 10.0.5 is... They're how do I word this? They are as solidified as they're probably going to be for the remainder of this patch. I would assume within 3 weeks to probably a month or so, probably max, we're in patch 10.0.7, and Warlock talent trees are changing in that patch for every spec. So Aff's getting a lot of changes. Destra's getting some minor ones in the class tree. Demo's getting a lot too, so I'm sure I'm gonna be making this video again in a month or so, but hey, you know, it is what it is. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.